ISOM #1 is the first project release from Rippaverse Comics. They put it out in a self-hosted pre-order campaign in the summer of 2022, and in about 2 months they sold over 40,000 books and made over $3.7 million. I don't have all the figures, but I'm pretty sure that's more than any Marvel or DC comic made that year. It's great to see that there's a market for fresh faces and new ideas. It's nice to see that we can all make it. I've been in the indie marketplace for a long time, so it's cool to see people doing good things there. Written by Rippaverse founder Eric July, aka Young Rippa59, ISOM #1 introduces brand new series, brand new characters, and a brand new superhero universe. This is a new story without the visibility that more established IPs might have, so you might not have heard about it. I'm going to try to keep the spoilers to a minimum, but there are going to be some light spoilers here. Kickstarting an ongoing series is tough. Just look at all the TV pilots that never get picked up and turned into shows. A pilot has to do several things that an established series doesn't have to worry as much about. Most important, of course, is exposition. The first issue has to introduce us to the story world and the major characters, ideally in an organic way that invites us to suspend our sense of disbelief and get invested in the story. Of course, this is something that any new story has to do. What makes a series starter unique is it needs to reveal a world that's richly detailed and expansive enough, and a decent number of characters who are varied, layered, and complex enough to stay compelling through an indefinite amount of future stories. But a pilot that is nothing but exposition would rapidly bore the reader. No matter how intriguing the characters and the world are, it's not a story if there's no action. Someone has to do something. Something has to change in the characters or story world. Some semblance of a plot must take shape, even if it's just the setup step for the first story arc. Otherwise, what do readers have to look forward to? Why should they buy the next issue? So how well does ISOM #1 balance all of these elements? Well, let's start with character introductions. First, we meet Avery, aka ISOM, we presume. He's not named until much later in the story. Avery is living out in the country. His sister calls to put a bit of that good old-fashioned family guilt on him, and that's the inciting incident that brings him back into the city. In the city, there's already a super fight going on between Yaira, a superhuman outlaw, and the superpowered police trio Alpha Corps. Avery confronts so-and-so, there's an argument, violence ensues. More argument, story progression, more violence. TLDR version, the hero is trying to find the daughter of a family friend. He confronts Darren, his former homie, who is now the crime lord of the city. Things escalate. We get to the motivation for Avery, aka ISOM, to return to the superhero world, and a splash page reveal at the end. There's a lot of story in there that I skipped, so if you are interested, guys, make sure you pick it up. It's really good. But I will talk about what it does well, and where it could be improved. So we have a hero, a villain, and some side characters of distinction. We don't yet know why Yaira is so angry, who issues orders to Alpha Corps, or why Avery stopped being a hero in the first place. One thing this issue does well is that it makes me want the answers to those questions. That's absolutely crucial for any series starter, building a sense of mystery around characters the audience cares about. This is the balancing act of exposition. Give us enough information to care about the story, while concealing enough information to keep us curious. ISOM handles this pretty well. A lot of the world building and character relationship info is related through dialogue, which isn't a bad choice. It gets clunky in a few places, though, where one character says something to another that they both already know. Some of this info could have been given in a more organic way or saved for a future issue. Fortunately, there isn't too much of it. The writer has taken pains not to pull us out of the story with info dumping. But there are still some moments where the dialogue feels clunky and exposition heavy. I expect this to smooth out in future issues. Given how difficult expositioning an ongoing series is, not to mention a whole new fictional universe, ISOM handles the balance well. It neatly dodges the rookie mistake of overloading us with info while giving us enough to get invested in the story and curious about its world and characters. Also, it's a huge positive that this is not an origin story issue. We're joining a story that is already in progress, action underway, with characters who already exist with their own lives and their own problems, and we are invited to jump in to the story at the start of a new conflict. It's an ideal place to bring us into a new story universe, and as you'll see if you go to Rippaverse.com, this universe is expanding, and I've bought all the books that they've released so far, and I've enjoyed each one a little bit more than the previous one. I think that they're learning as they go on. Of course, they've got some of the best talent in the comic book world working with them. People like Chuck Dixon, the creator of Bane and author of the Batman Nightfall storyline, who wrote their Alpha Core series. It also helped Eric July with his own writing for ISOM number 2, which I'd say is an improvement over ISOM number 1. So the first story is enough to get us invested in the story world, and enough to make me want to know more about the characters. Some of the things that I feel are flaws, obviously I talked about the dialogue there. I understand ISOM's motivation, but at this point, he's not a hero that I'm fully invested in rooting for. He's not really a hero, I should say. He's our protagonist, yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily call him an anti-hero, but his motivations feel more like pride and family loyalty, which are certainly understandable motivations, sympathetic motivations, but he never feels like he's doing the right thing just because it is the right thing to do, any more than reluctantly. So, I'm not sure if that's going to change, if something is going to drive him to have a character arc. I hope that there is some kind of development in him to make him a more interesting character than he is. He's not the most interesting character of the first book, honestly. The most interesting character for me was Yaira, and so far, of the books that they've released, that's my favorite of them. I really did enjoy Gooding the Polymath as well, by Mike Barron, another excellent comic book legend. So I'm really excited to see where this story universe is going to take them. What we can learn from writers about this is, if you're going to introduce a universe, you don't have to start at the very beginning. You can drop us in the middle. Just make sure you have some idea of what the world is and who the characters are, and give us enough to care. That's enough of a starting point. So if you're looking to start a series, I'm planning to start one myself, take that to heart and go out there and make it the best you can. Until next time, good luck and good writing. Peace.